Hey guys, welcome back to the Path to Profit podcast. So, today we're going to be tackling a topic that trips up so many business owners, and that topic is the difference between branding and marketing. This is one of those topics that I feel like I talk about way too often. It is one of my favorite things to talk about, but also one of the things that confuses so many businesses. So, I thought that we should also discuss it as well. So, if you've ever caught yourself thinking that they're the same thing, or maybe even worse, you completely overlook them altogether, this episode is going to be for you. So, I like to say that branding and marketing are like sisters, not twins. They are both children to sales. They both live underneath sales's roof, but they are not the same child at the end of the day. And understanding the difference between them is going to make the difference between you struggling to get the sales that you want and building a business that practically sells itself. The people who feel like sales is seamless and easy are the people who have clarified the difference between branding and marketing. The people who struggle with sales are typically people who either don't understand the difference between branding and marketing or don't have a clear-cut brand strategy and or a clear-cut marketing strategy. So, let's hop right into today's episode. So, when I talk to a lot of business owners and boutique owners, they tell me that they need help with consistent sales. But after doing a little bit of digging and asking, more clarifying questions, in all actuality, most of them are actually struggling with marketing. A lot of times, people confuse their lack of sales or the inconsistency of their sales with it being a sales problem. But in all actuality, it is typically a marketing problem. And then on the flip side, the ones that think that they need help with marketing typically need help with branding. So they're the people who are like, my content isn't being engaged with, or my content isn't converting. I'm not getting much traffic from social media, things of that nature. A lot of times that has to do with branding. So every business needs branding, marketing, and sales strategy. And most times one is impacting the other. So obviously, your marketing is impacting your sales, but your branding is going to impact your marketing. Your branding and marketing combined are going to help you to drive sales. So branding and marketing are basically like the foundation or the walls and the walls of a house, right? You wouldn't build a house without putting the proper foundation down on the ground, as well as putting the proper, I don't know anything about building a house, but like I'm looking at the wall in front of me, and like I know that there's something inside of that wall before they put the drywall up, right? You wouldn't just plaster something up there and think that it's going to last through a freaking tornado, right? They're going to be very, very particular about what they put in place so that that house lasts. Your business is the house. You need to make sure that you put the proper pieces in place to make sure that even when things are hard, like the economy and things of that nature, that your business still has a fighting chance to survive even in the hardest of times. So if branding and marketing are like the foundation and the walls of a house, basically what you want to consider is that you can't build something strong without both of them. And basically they serve different purposes. So branding may be, I don't know, the concrete on the floor, but marketing may be the wood that they use to set up the foundation of like the actual house itself. Those might be bad examples because again, I've never built a house obviously. But today we're going to talk about and break down what branding is, what marketing is, and how they work together, and why focusing on just one will not get you the results that you want. So first, let's talk about what is branding. Branding is the identity of your business. It's who your business is, what it stands for, how you want people to perceive you, so on and so forth. So if you think about yourself as a person, every person is a brand at the end of the day. So my brand is that I am an online boutique owner, that I am a business coach, so on and so forth, right? It's the things that people know and believe to be true about me. But the thing about perception is that people perceive you based off of what they see. And what they are seeing from their perspective may not be what you intended for them to see. So, for example, there are people who believe that I'm mean. And I think that's quite funny because I think I am an angel. I think I'm a sweetheart. So I'm always so confused when people are like, I feel like you're mean. I feel like that you should say things better. I'm like, I'm direct. So the way that people perceive you is going to be based off of their experience with you. So let's say maybe those people only read a few of my posts and maybe they didn't like the tone of it. Maybe they didn't like how direct and concise I was. And they came to the conclusion that I was mean. Whereas people who've been here for years, they're like, oh no, I appreciate that Jance is straight to the point, concise, and direct and doesn't beat around the bush, right? So two different people can have two different perceptions of your brand at the end of the day. But as a business owner, it's your job to try to shape that perception in the direction that you want it to go. So your brand is going to make up things like obviously your logo, your colors, your messaging, so on and so forth, your values, and ultimately just the overall experience that people have when they interact with your brand. But it should be intentionally curated. Everything should be for a specific purpose. You actually decided to say it that way or to place it that way. Not a case of like, oh, this is just the way that we do it consistently every single time. Like, when you think about your pictures and things like that, or like my caption always just says like new arrivals just dropped, click the link in our bio. Like that doesn't add to your brand experience at all. So think about it this way. Branding is the why behind your business. Why should people choose you? Why should they trust your business? Why should they care? It's all about why. So as you're taking, more so as you're making decisions in your business about what you're going to do, what you're going to offer, so on and so forth, you want to ask yourself, why should people choose this over another option? Why should they trust this? Why should they care about this? So branding basically gives people a reason to even give you a thought, to give you consideration, to even consider the likelihood or the opportunity to shop with you. So I like to think of it just like dating. I relate dating or marketing and branding to dating a lot. So if you think about like someone's dating profile on one of those dating apps, I always have to give the caveat that like I've never been on a dating app. I don't know anything about them. I'm making assumptions. But let's say you may look at their profile, and visually that person's attractive. You're like, I see this person's picture, they look good, but looks don't tell you everything that you need to know about a person. Looks alone won't tell you that you can trust someone, right? So you might dig a little bit deeper into that person's profile to get a better understanding of their identity and who they actually are, and then you decide whether or not you're going to give them the time of day, right? So if you can compare your business to the fact that you're trying to build relationships with people, think about it from the standpoint of dating, and hopefully you're starting to understand that it's not just a case of like, oh, it needs to look good. I find so many people want to, do a fancy photo shoot and all that good stuff. Sure, looking good is great for from an attraction standpoint, but that doesn't automatically make them trust your business. It doesn't automatically make them feel like they can reasonably hand their money over, right? So you want to ask yourself basically, or tell yourself, I am not just trying to sell a product here, because in all actuality, there are a lot of people who post products all day, every day, and they struggle to make a sale. So really, it's all about creating an emotional connection that makes your brand memorable and worthy of attention. That is what your job is when it comes to branding. So always ask yourself, what am I doing here to create an emotional connection between my business and the person on the other side of the screen? So I want to give you an example. Think about Apple. And literally, as I'm talking to you guys, I literally have three iPhones in front of me. And I know you're like, why do you have three iPhones? I typically have two. I just got a new one that I need to transfer all my stuff to. So in this present moment, I'm looking at three iPhones. I have an iPad, I have a MacBook, I have an Apple Watch to my right, and in front of me is my iMac. Why in the world do I have so many Apple products? Well, it's because Apple has amazing branding. People don't just buy iPhones because they're functional. I can get a phone, I could get an Android, I could get I don't even know what other phone companies there are. I know that I could get an Android if I wanted to, right? We could absolutely go buy another phone, probably for a fraction of the price. So why do we keep buying Apple products? Well, we keep buying them because Apple has created a brand that represents innovation and quality, and they're in a sleek design. We love the overall functionality of like how the products compare with one another. And if we're being honest, it would be such a hassle to get rid of Apple in my life, right? Because there are so many things that are connected to one another. They make it so easy for me to hop from one device to the other. That's branding. It's all about experience. That is literally branding in action. The branding is why we're stocked up in iPhones, Apple Watches, iPads, MacBooks, iMacs, so on and so forth, right? So I want you guys to take branding serious because, in all actuality, when you are struggling in the branding department, you will forever struggle in the marketing department. So let's talk about marketing now. If branding is the why, marketing is the how. At the end of the day, it's how are we going to communicate our brand to the world? How are we going to present it to the world? How are we going to get people to take action? So marketing is the strategies and tactics that you use to promote your products and get them in front of your audience. It's your ads, your social media posts, your emails, your text messages, your SEO, the promotions you run, so on and so forth. All of that is marketing. Marketing is basically what drives awareness, what drives traffic, and what drives sales. But here's the thing, marketing is only as effective as the branding behind it. So, I mentioned earlier that people will come to me and say, I need help with branding. And so when I look at it, I say, or sorry, they'll say, I need help with marketing. And I look at it and I say, got it. What you actually need help with is branding. Because if you're struggling with what to say and how to say it and why to say it that way or why to present it this way instead of that way, that's branding. That's not marketing. So marketing is just you posting. Like anybody could post. You could send an email. You could send a text message simply because you have access to the platforms. But branding is what makes the marketing effective at the end of the day. And that is why so many people struggle and don't see results, why their click-through rates are low and their open rates are low and their conversion rate is low and traffic is low, so on and so forth. The branding wasn't in order, and therefore the marketing cannot be in order. Okay. So if your branding isn't strong, your marketing won't connect with your audience the way that you want it to, and it's going to always feel like it's failing. If your branding isn't clear, your marketing will be inconsistent and ineffective, friend. Okay. So this means that your sales are going to be the same. If the branding isn't working. If the branding isn't working, the marketing isn't working, and ultimately the sales isn't working either. So I want you to imagine for a second. Let's say you sold candles. Let's say you were running an ad that was showcasing a new candle. Maybe you have, your label on the front. It has the name of the candle, and it's literally just like a picture of your candle on, I don't know, your bedroom dresser, right? Well, if your branding isn't clear, maybe your visuals are inconsistent, or maybe there's like no context being provided. Like, for example, you put the candle on your bedroom dresser, but you could have styled your bedroom dresser a certain way. And when I say style it, I mean like putting pictures in the background or putting other, like, I don't know, like a vase or some other type of something that gives off an aesthetic that gives the person viewing it a reason to connect to it, that potentially could have helped you to grab someone's attention, right? So if your dresser looks like my dresser, because maybe I'm an aesthetics girl who can't stay out of home goods, so I got all types of cute little things on my dresser. And if your picture speaks to me as a person who loves to make their dresser look nice, you grab my attention. But when you're lacking in knowing your customer and knowing why something needs to be presented a certain way, the marketing is going to fall flat at the end of the day. So your ad is going to basically be just noise. They're going to scroll right past it because you didn't give them a reason to need to click on it. So long story short, marketing is going to help to amplify your brand. But if the branding isn't clear, your marketing is going to fall flat almost every single time. You could have beautiful quality images, but if there's no connection for the person to make, you're going to make it that much harder for you to get that click and ultimately that purchase. So let's talk about how branding and marketing work together. Let's break this down a little bit more in depth. I got a couple of points I want to make sure that you guys walk away with. So the first one is branding is going to build trust, but marketing is going to drive action. Branding is basically going to lay the foundation by creating that connection with the person on the other side of the screen. But marketing is going to take that trust and that connection and turn it into clicks, sales, and loyalty. So if you've ever asked yourself, I'm getting a bunch of views on my ads. Like, you can see your data. It says this is how many people we reach. This is how many impressions we have. But your clicks. Like imagine having 5-figure reach and impressions in the 5 figures, but clicks in the double digits. Like I'm talking 27, but you had 10,000 impressions. That's insane. That is absolutely insane. So in those cases, what you want to ask yourself is not just a marketing for marketing clarification, but also branding clarification. Like all these people are seeing my content and this very small number of people are clicking it. That tells you that there's a lack of connection that is occurring there. So when people don't feel connection and or trust, there are going to be no clicks, no sales, no loyalty. The second thing I want you guys to know is that branding is long term, marketing is short term. So, yes, you're going to always be marketing, but your marketing strategies, your marketing tactics are going to change over time. But your branding is long term, forever and ever and ever until we decide that we're going to rebrand, which is what I'm doing right now. Until we decide that we want to change the public's perception of our brand, this is what our brand is. This is what we do. This is what we offer. This is how we do it. That stays the same forever until you decide to change it. But marketing is short term. Marketing gives you the room to be creative and fun and, change how things look and things of that nature. But there has to be some consistency in how you go about it. So branding is about building recognition and loyalty over time, but marketing focuses on specific campaigns and launches and different goals and things like that. There's going to be times where your primary goal is to, let's say, grow your social media following. There's going to be other times where your primary goal is to grow an email list. Maybe you are doing a launch, you have a new product or a new collection that's dropping, so on and so forth. So that's going to be marketing. But the next time you launch something, the marketing, the content, it's not going to be the same. It shouldn't be the same. And I know that it's the same for most of y'all, which I really, really, really hate. It rubs me the wrong way. But I want you to know again, branding is long term and marketing is short term. The third point is branding makes marketing easier. So when people tell me I'm struggling with marketing, as I mentioned, I think I've said it probably 3 times now, I typically come to the conclusion that they are struggling with branding. They don't have a brand strategy. And I'm able to come to that conclusion because of this point. Branding makes marketing easier. When your branding is strong and clear, your marketing efforts are, technically speaking, more effective because you don't have to ask yourself so many questions around like how and why. So people are going to ultimately recognize your brand a lot more easily. They're going to trust your brand, and more likely, they're going to be more likely to take the action that you want them to take. So think about your branding like planting a tree. Marketing is how you water it, give it sunlight, help it to grow. Okay. Branding is like you put the seed in the ground. That's your job. Put the seed out there, but marketing is going to help. Marketing is you watering that seed, you giving it sunlight, you're amplifying the seed in hopes that it grows. So without branding, marketing feels disconnected. It's going to feel aimless. It's going to feel random. You're going to always be spinning your wheels trying to figure out what to do next, what to say next, so on and so forth. Without marketing, branding struggles. Your branding is going to struggle to reach those audiences that you want to reach at the end of the day. So take the brand strategy seriously so that you can get the marketing strategy right. Now, let's talk about some common mistakes that I see so many boutique owners and business owners making out there. Now that we've defined what branding and marketing is, we got to make sure that you understand what's a mistake and what's not a mistake. Because I don't want you to walk away from this episode thinking to yourself, all right, I got it. But then you go and do something later today or tomorrow that indicates that you don't got it, friend. Okay. So the first is focusing only on marketing. That is such a huge mistake. I see so many business owners who jump straight into running ads or posting on Instagram, or they tell themselves, like, if I just post more, if I just send more emails, like, yes, more is great, but more is best when your branding is intact. So you want to make sure that you've established that clear brand identity first before you start increasing your efforts and running into ads and things like that, especially ads, because they cost money, friend. It's like gambling. Don't do it. Okay. Wait until you have that branding in order. As a result of not having clarity about your branding and only focusing on the marketing, you're typically going to have really inconsistent messaging. You're going to waste money. You're going to waste time. And I don't want you to do that. A second mistake that I see a lot of people making is that they ignore branding altogether. So on the opposite side, the people that are focusing only on marketing typically are obviously ignoring their branding. Some people just assume that branding isn't that important, or as we've learned thus far, maybe you've learned throughout this podcast that you didn't know what branding was. You thought that you had your branding intact. So as a result, you threw together a logo and you chose your fonts, your colors and things like that. But you don't actually, in fact, have a cohesive brand, because branding is about the entire experience, every touch point that someone comes into contact with when it comes to your brand. So without that cohesiveness in your branding, it's going to be hard for you to build trust, but also hard for you to stand out in a crowded market, this super saturated situation that we're all in. The second mistake, or sorry, this is the third mistake. The third mistake that I see so many business owners making is thinking that branding is a one-time task. So again, going back to those aesthetics and things like that, a lot of people think you just set it and forget it. You paid the person to build the logo, build the website, choose your font, so on and so forth, and then that was it. Well, in all actuality, your branding is going to evolve with your business, because you're going to learn more about your customers and what they want and what they like and what they dislike. And you should be taking all of that into consideration to help you make your branding better at the end of the day. So you want to make sure you're clear about the fact that you're going to make a decision about what you want your brand or your branding to be, but you're going to also need to leave yourself the room to refine it as your business grows. So I keep mentioning, I've rebranded or worked on rebranding all of 2024, and now we're, in the third month of 2025, and I'm approaching getting ready to relaunch my business. Everybody kept saying, like, why is it taking so long? Or like, we can't wait for you to come back. I didn't shut my whole business down. Like, my business still exists. People can still find it. They can still shop it, what's left. But eventually we're going to shut that website down, change all the messaging, make sure that there's visual cohesion, so on and so forth, because we've taken the time to refine what the business needs to be based off of all the things we've learned about our customer and, their needs and their desires over time. So, long story short, if you're struggling with either branding or marketing, you want to ask yourself, is my brand clear? Does my marketing reflect my branding? If the answer is no, it is literally time to take a pause and go back to the drawing board and make sure that you get clear about that branding so that you can get clearer about your marketing. So let's talk about how to align your branding and your marketing together. How do you get them to work together? So here's some tips. Number one, start with your brand identity. I think we talked about this a bit in the previous episode. Start with your brand identity. Before you create a single ad or you post that next picture on social media, define your brand. What is it? What do you do? What's your niche? What do you stand for? Who is your audience? So on and so forth. You want to make sure that you're clear about exactly what your business is and who it's for. The second thing that I would recommend doing is creating consistency in your visuals and your messaging. So that logo, your colors, your fonts, but also your tone of voice, all of that should be consistent across all your marketing channels. So your Instagram, your Facebook, your TikTok, your emails, your text messages, so your website as a whole, so on and so forth. All of those should have consistency in what it looks like and also what it sounds like, the messaging that you use. The third tip is going to be to use marketing to tell your brand story. Now, we didn't go very deeply into brand story, but I highly recommend that you write a brand story. And y'all know I love AI, artificial intelligence at this point. ChatGPT is my bestie. Write out your brand story for yourself and like truly write it out. Or you could even use like voice note and just say it out loud to ChatGPT and tell it everything. Like, tell it all the things that you intend for your business to be and who it's for and how you got here, how you started. Talk straight from the top of your head. Like, this is how I rewrote my brand story for Brazen, for our rebrand. I talked right into my phone, voice note style, into ChatGPT, and I said, can you take all of this and write my brand story for me? And I kid y'all not, I almost wanted to shed a tear after it wrote my brand story, because I said it out loud exactly how I was thinking it instead of trying to type it out myself. And then, when you're typing something out yourself, you kind of like, you want it to be perfect. So you think really hard about it, but when I'm just saying it off the top of my head, I didn't have time to like try to think and say the right words and things like that. So I think it came out a lot more effective that way. All right. And then the last tip here is to measure and adjust. So I am a big analytics girl. I am a very, like, I want to see the data. I want to understand what happened and then use that to my advantage. So you want to use your marketing data to see what's resonating with your audience and ultimately use that to adjust your branding or messaging as needed because something will need to be adjusted. It's never going to be perfect. All right. So let's wrap this situation up. Let's recap. First things first, branding is your identity. It's the why behind your business, but marketing is your strategy. It's the how. It's how you promote your products and ultimately how you reach your target audience. The third thing is that strong branding is going to make marketing easier and more effective, which is going to ultimately make sales more easy and effective. And then the last point is you need both to create a business that grows consistently and builds loyalty. So do not neglect one thinking that it is not that important. They are both important. They both need to work together to drive the consistent sales that you desire. So, as always, if you're stuck trying to figure out if you need better branding or marketing, take a step back, look at the bigger picture, ask yourself some clarifying questions. And of course, if you need help, you know where to find me. Send me a DM on Instagram if you would like, if you want to chat it up. I love chatting. And of course, if you are interested in building a brand strategy, marketing strategy, and sales strategy for your business, my program, E-commerce Profit Plan, is open for enrollment, and we would love to see you inside. All right. So on our next episode, we're going to dive into the marketing mix. And I hope you guys are excited because this is one of those topics that people just don't know. All right. So hope you guys are excited to hear the next one. Thank you for tuning in, and I will chat with you next time.